Any opinions expressed in EarthSky People Radio do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Any opinions expressed by EarthSky People Radio's guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of EarthSky People Radio. Hello, this is EarthSky People Radio with your host, your friend, and your soul family, Victoria Vives Khuong. You can find me at victoriavives.com. Today is Saturday, February 21st, 2015. We are together in EarthSky People Radio. Earth representing our connection with Mother Earth and nature, and Sky representing spirituality and life beyond the Earth, extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional. Last week, we had the third International Chanting for Peace and Laughter. It was an amazing experience, so I thank you so much for participating. It was really outstanding. And you can check out the replay of this show at victoriavives.com/peace3. You will also see a video, so it was not just in the radio, but also the video live, a live show. So please check it out because it was amazing. And today we have a special show here. I'm with Nhan, my husband, and we are going to be speaking about what is the Matrix. So I want to welcome Nhan. Hi.
Hi.
It's awesome because we're just here in our living room. Normally my guest is in another place in the world, but today we're just here sitting on the sofa in the living room, so that's kind of nice. Very convenient, isn't it, Nhan?
It's very convenient.
Well, I love this opportunity to share with you. It's comfortable for you, it's comfortable for us, so why not? Let's do it. We had a couple of shows together. One was, what was the name, Nhan?
It was the 5 health secrets that nobody talks about.
Right, so that was the show we had, and that was a radio show. And then we also had a webinar, and this actually was the first webinar that we wanted to offer to unplug from the Matrix. So what has happened is that after we did the first webinar, we started discovering more and more information and getting more and more ideas of how to share this, so that you can better enjoy it, so that we can share in more depth as well. So we have decided to start from the beginning. We feel that there is a lot of foundation we need to cover. So we're going to do that today in What is the Matrix? And then we will just start over with the series of this deprogramming training, which is so that you can truly recognize the light that you are, the divine eternal being that you are, and you can reclaim that power. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, the initial idea that we had, it was good when we started with the 5 secrets and for health, and also talking about the Matrix and what it is and how we can disconnect from it. But what happened is that, we're always learning more information, but the main thing is that it's a simple concept, but it has such a far-reaching effect. It becomes very complicated when it comes to how to integrate those ideas and what we're actually going to be doing in our everyday life, here and now. So we've decided to reorganize all the information we have and package it in such a way that it can be followed easier, it can be understood, and also whereby people can begin, regardless of your current situation, you can start to apply those concepts right away.
That's awesome. And for me, I think my personal experience, and the reason why I said that right now I feel that there is a new level of information is because we both have been really learning a lot lately. In my case, it has been maybe more about my starseed connection and to really embrace my mission. So I feel that we really have to take this to the next level. 2015 is a year that is going to be decisive on what the future is going to be. So we want to make sure that we put as many tools out there so that we all can join in our sovereignty, in our freedom, and in our happiness. Okay, so let's get started.
All right. So, what is The Matrix?
Is it a movie?
Yeah, so I think it's important to start off with that. Some people, and it's always surprising to me when I hear people who have not seen The Matrix, but The Matrix is a movie. It came out in 1999, and at least for me, and I know it for many other people, it was pretty groundbreaking on many levels. Not just their cinematography, but also the ideas that they're presenting. They're not unique in the sense that people have talked about this before, but this came out in such a blockbuster movie scenario that it presented a unique opportunity to present information to a lot of people in a very agreeable way, where people want to go see it and want to talk about it, and basically created almost like a cult-like following. But basically I feel that kind of opened some doors, and we're taking advantage of that by using that terminology just so that we can have something to draw from, a feeling that we can draw from as we delve into what exactly the Matrix is in this life, in our reality, as opposed to in the movie reality.
So another reason why I really enjoy The Matrix and other movies of this kind is that they are icons, similar to the transfiguration icons represented in paintings. So for example, there are paintings of Jesus, of their transfiguration, shape-shifting into a shining cosmic beam of light. Normally they would be like placing their hands up and shining light. And that was done by artists so that we could have something to connect ourselves with our own divinity inside. It wasn't about, oh, look at Jesus, how amazing he is, but instead is, look at this and mirror it so that you can awaken the same within you. So in my opinion, movies like The Matrix are showing us Neo how he freed himself from the Matrix. And it has all this meaning and it has all this information. And it is not just entertainment, obviously. It is much more than that. So it's an icon for what we can mirror as well. So that's another reason why I feel The Matrix is very, very powerful. I would say it's the most powerful movie that has been done for our sovereignty.
I agree. We know what The Matrix is, or rather, maybe we don't, but The Matrix in the movie The Matrix was essentially a program that was designed to keep people in a dream state, whereby they can just live their lives as they normally would, but within a program, a virtual reality. Whereas on the outside of this virtual reality, they're essentially being harvested for their energy as an energy source, like a battery. So that's essentially the premise of the movie, whereby people break free from the Matrix and basically are part of a revolution to free humanity. So that's what the Matrix is in the movie. So what is the Matrix in our reality? Essentially, it's the same thing. It's still a program designed to control and harvest people. So how does that manifest itself in concrete terms? Well, it manifests itself in many, many different ways. Basically, most of what we consider conventional living in some form or another is going to be either directly or indirectly related to our matrix in our reality now. So I'll start with an obvious one, government. So government is not inherently bad. It's not inherently a control system, or rather a control system that is using the people. It can be a control system, but what we want is a government that is useful for helping us to live in a free society, essentially, to give us our maximum potential to develop ourselves, to increase our creativity, to increase our awareness and our ability to produce amazing things, whether it's artwork or technology or whatever it is. So in our case now with government, we're looking at government and politics. These are two things go hand in hand, extremely complex, difficult to understand. We debate and argue about it over it endlessly, and there's really no no solution, right? At least in the U.S., in the United States, we have the two major parties, the Republicans and the Democrats, and it's just a never-ending war that engages people to continue arguing over nothing, really, just something else to keep us occupied and distracted from what we can really be doing, which is really amazing things.
And I truly feel that that is one of the keys of the Matrix, to really keep us entertained with things that don't matter. Whether it is Justin Bieber, or whether it is the next TV commercial, or whether it is you have to go to work and spend so many hours in front of a screen. My husband was saying the other day that there is a scene in The Matrix that is very meaningful to him. And it's because, well, would you share that?
Sure. Yeah, so it's a very brief moment, but for whatever reason, it really connected with me, where Mr. Anderson, who is Neo's, the main character, but before he is freed from the Matrix, he just finished having this talk with his boss in their big corporate building about how he needs to be on time at his desk. And when after his talk, the scene shifts to Mr. Anderson sitting in his chair in front of his desk, looking at a blank screen, doing absolutely nothing. So it only lasts a few moments, but that really it just rung so true to me that we have this system that is being represented by Mr. Anderson's boss, this software company, this corporation, that's trying to keep us in place, behaving, and not necessarily doing anything necessarily. We might feel like we're always so busy and there's always the next deadline. We have to do this, we have to do that for our survival. But yet, if we really kind of zoom out and look at the big picture, we're just kind of scurrying about doing nothing. We're not really accomplishing a whole lot. It's really just a figment of our imagination. And that's what we see Mr. Anderson doing, just sitting there in his little cubicle and doing absolutely nothing, just kind of spacing out, staring at his blank screen. So for me, that was really powerful. Again, it was just a moment in the movie, but there's just so much symbolism in there that I feel is so powerful to things that are really happening in our lives now.
Right. And that really gets me, the distraction that we have continuously, that is always taking us away from our inside, which is where we have our awareness, our consciousness, the place where we can really grow and expand and realize the full of who we are. Our attention is all scattered between all the millions of bits of information we receive at every second. Whether it is because we are in the street and all these noises are coming to us, or all these lights and somebody screaming in the car or whatever. So we're always focused outside. So that's why I feel that the things that we do to come inside through meditation or healing or other things like that really help to reconnect with who we are and start seeing our truth, the truth of who we are, instead to believe in that veil that is covering reality, that is the Matrix. So, very important, if you are able to escape the Mr. Anderson personality and truly go into your inside and see who you truly are and start exploring that would be awesome.
So, the government and politics, this is a fairly sensitive subject. I think a lot of people really, as Victoria was saying, find a lot of entertainment in this. Talking politics is such a big thing, and it touches a lot of nerves. Regardless of what you're saying in politics, you're going to be stepping on somebody's toes, and I think really that's kind of the whole purpose. To cause conflict and for people to just endlessly fight over this. It gives us the illusion of power, and I think that's really important because we also see that in The Matrix, in the movie, this program. People think that they're in control of their lives, but they're not. They're just kind of running around inside their own dreams, doing really nothing's happening. And the same thing is happening with government and politics. Government is not there. Government is supposed to be there to help us. instead of rather harvesting us, which is actually what's really happening. And politics is just a tool to keep us confused and engaged in nothing, actually.
And you want to know a good example for also that division that is formed of this is this team and this is that team? All sports, anything about sports. Right. And if you go to Spain and you see what is formed there when there is soccer, I mean, that is crazy. And talk about division, that is what keeps us divided sometimes, to create these parties. Okay, are you with this team, with that team, with this politic, with the other politic? And all of that truly separate us instead to bring us together so that we can become one once again, come back into this oneness and be truly powerful for who we are, not always with this external authority.
Sure. And spectator sports, that's probably another one of the biggest forms of control within our matrix now. I mean, really, it's probably one of the biggest industries. It always amazes me how everything, all aspects of life in the city here changes whenever there's a big game of some sort, whether it's a Super Bowl or whatever. I don't watch sports. We actually don't even have a TV here. So we're usually we don't know what's going on until we're out in the street and we go shopping or somebody says something about it. Or for whatever reason, maybe there's not so many people in classes or something like that, because we're not really sure what's going on until, for whatever reason, there's traffic all of a sudden on a day that there's no traffic. There's tons of people at the store, or there's nobody at the store, or, basically everything changes, and it's a sport. And in some cases, history has shown us there's riots and destruction and death and everything coming just from a game. Oh, no. Which is, for me, that's just, I find it very hard to grasp how that can have such a big impact. But, it's all built in to really capture people's attention and to engage them.
I'm laughing because the other day we went to Costco, we bought a few things, and when we are leaving in the cashier is like, getting ready for Sunday, huh? And we are like, yeah, and for today too. I don't know, what do you mean? Amazing. And it was because it was the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Super Bowl.
And
Sunday.
we're like, oh, okay. But we were, like everybody sees it so normal. Of course, everybody has to be prepared for the Super Bowl. Right. Oh, come on. That's the most important event that we have. The most spiritual and illuminating. And I understand. It's nothing bad about it. But it's interesting that somebody would assume that we are thinking about that at that moment. Because, I had no idea that it was the Super Bowl. So.
Right. Well, the way we live our lives, it tends to be kind of on the we live in the city. So that's really our connection. But for the most part, we kind of live a lifestyle that's outside convention. It's kind of on the fringes. So we really have to make an effort to keep in the loop, to know what's going on in conventional society. But in any case, getting back to what is the matrix, another system of control, a very big one, very powerful one, is health. So health, there's a few aspects to health. There's food. The primary aspects that I can see are food, fitness, and medicine. And those three are just super powerful when it comes to the matrix controlling us. Yeah. So what you eat, where it comes from, if you notice, you'll find that especially if you're on a conventional American diet, the standard American diet, SAD as they call it, which is a very fitting term for it. Basically, you're eating wheat, corn, and soy every day for the most part, with the occasional something else.
And if it would be those foods, but healthy, it would be okay. But the thing is that it's all refined, processed, GMO. That's what really makes it a big problem.
Well, there's so many layers to this. The modern human being lives a longer life than perhaps our primitive ancestors did. But it doesn't necessarily mean that eating genetically modified soy, corn, and wheat is causing that. We really have to peel away the layers and understand what is happening, what are the ramifications of all of these things that are being used to control us. So as far as food, yeah, GMOs, that's a whole different story. There's a lot of conflict there, and you know, there's some obvious reasons why we wouldn't want to eat GMOs. There's a ton of research pointing one way or the other, whether GMOs are safe, whether they're not safe. Basically what it comes down to is, what do we have to gain, and who has to gain from perpetuating a system that has people living off of 3 ingredients. And those 3 ingredients, in the process of making them, were essentially destroying, reducing the diversity of life on this planet, and we are basically causing it to deteriorate by these huge monocrops and all the chemicals and processing required to use them.
To me, the part that is very sad is that when Nhan and I go to the mountains and we see all these beautiful wild plants, wildlife, everything is so harmonious, and you can go and even eat some of the plants, and everything is so beautiful and delicious and healthy. And then to think that we have erased the fields of natural life and plants in order to put concrete, but also to plant things that we will eat that are not as good as the original plants, and that are depleting the soil. So those are the things that also I feel very sad about. What would it happen if we are able to turn back this beautiful planet to its origin and have those beautiful wild plants, those beautiful edibles growing naturally? If we would eat those, how we would change as human beings, because there are parts that we can go to a lab and see the ingredients and the nourishment of a vegetable. But what about the energetic aspect of a vegetable? How can we change as human beings? What can change in our awareness, our consciousness, if we eat things that are from the land, natural, and we live with that nourishment? So I feel that would be something very, very powerful, and actually we're going to start doing something in that sense in our front yard.
Right. And kind of building off of that, when we look into our relatively recent history, we're talking about within the last 100 to 200 years, right here where we are in Southern California, the landscape has changed tremendously. I mean, tremendously. It's just amazing how much has changed. Even within the last, say, 50, 60 years, the landscape has changed. But when we look back into history, people like naturalists like John Muir, for example, they described a Southern Californian landscape that was just totally different. You'd think it was another world. Because those sorts of things don't exist now.
Would you describe something? I'm curious now.
Well, we're talking about a level of abundance in terms of diversity and quantity of animal and plant life.
How beautiful.
That is just, we would actually find it hard to believe that he was actually talking about this land, this land that we're here on right now, at least Victoria and I. But it doesn't exist anymore, and it will never exist again, because those animals and those plants are gone forever.
Oh, that's
that
sad.
landscape. Yeah, that landscape has been completely altered by people not being aware and exploiting. So basically, the way that we're going to reverse that is by increasing our awareness.
So that's why self-sustainability is not enough.
Right.
We need regenerative. We really need to do something to undo certain things that we have done. And that's what we are working on. And I encourage you to take into the team and start thinking of these ideas, And no pressure. Everything starts with one step. My husband and I have been in this for a while. And I feel that now we are at a greater depth involved. But before it was just, just small steps here and there. But if you start exploring this, it will call you more and more, and you will see the benefits as well. So I'm sure you will get excited as we are.
So another point within health, again, another system of control within our very own little piece of matrix here is fitness. So when we look at fitness, there really is. It's kind of like a religion. We see it everywhere. We see it in the movies, in the news, in the media, the internet, magazines, the radio. We hear about how we need to be exercising this kind of exercise, that kind of exercise, the latest exercise that's going to blast your abs or whatever it is that they do. Basically, it's another form of creating fear, control through fear, that something terrible is going to happen with you or to you if you don't do this, and also another form of entertainment. You know, we look at CrossFit, for example. CrossFit, it's become a huge all the rage, you know, in the fitness industry. But and yeah, we see people, they're getting super fit, but we also see a lot of people suffering these consequences of just overdoing something. And once again, the main thing is just people getting into this.
You know, sorry to interrupt, but I don't know what it's called. CrossFit.
CrossFit. Well, CrossFit, you know, I don't remember when it started, but I remember seeing a lot of CrossFit coming up everywhere, maybe 3 years ago, two or 3 years ago. It's basically a very high intensity. It's a hybrid form of exercise that draws from different modalities, and ultimately what it comes down to, it's about people doing tons and tons of reps and high impact, high intensity exercise. And there's a few YouTube videos that I saw floating around, kind of making fun of this, and it pretty much rings true because it has a very cult-like following, and exercising to the point where you vomit because you're overdoing it is kind of a baseline where I think it's pretty common.
It's funny because a lot of people, especially before, was asking me always about, what do you do for fitness? Tell us your secret. What should I do to get fit? And I have no idea. I have no idea of all of these things. Like my recommendation is have fun. You know, and do something that you enjoy, whether it is dance, martial arts, go run, but just have fun. Do it for fun. Don't do it with that pressure that, oh, I'm going to get fat. Oh, my goodness, I'm not going to fit in the society. All that fear that Nhan was talking about. So I don't have that perspective. It's just enjoy doing something that teaches you and your muscles and your body a new way of moving. I feel that when we move our body into a greater wisdom, is something that has nothing to do to just get fit. It's much more than that. So for me, to go lift weights, it's okay, you know, but I feel that I'm not making my body wise. Whereas if you go dance or you go learning martial arts, you are really engaging a whole new level of your soul, actually, because when you are dancing, you are expressing your soul. When you are doing martial arts, you are also engaging with your soul and your power, your reflexes, many other things. So I feel that it is very important to not just do things so that you look in a certain way, but instead so that you become wiser and reach that depth in your soul. So that's another of the aspects that I feel that it is not present in things like the CrossFit that you were saying.
Oh, sure.
And also what I feel is that in the long term, it is not going to be healthy in the body. Whereas things like from the Eastern tradition, certain martial arts in which you are engaging with the breathing and with your energy and learning about that is totally different and can keep you much healthier than just see if you can vomit.
You know, and that idea of you know, connecting at a deeper level and developing a wisdom, as Victoria was saying, that can be applied to everything, whether it's government or health or food even, fitness, and she mentioned martial arts and dance, and the thing is that we see those now, and those can also be fitness crazes. We see, for example, Zumba on every corner. And the problem is that the Matrix takes these things that are such beautiful, powerful tools and just kind of perverts them and creates these monsters.
That's true. That reminds me when I was working in television. I started dancing because I really loved dance. But then when I got into television, I hated to dance. It was so horrible. And it's only now that I got into my shamanic expression of dance that I start enjoying it again. But before, it was like truly just not enjoyable. I hated dance for years.
Yeah, and this similar thing happened with me in martial arts when I was starting to get involved in developing my own skill level versus other people's skill level. And ultimately what that led me to do is I injured myself, for one. In fact, I have all sorts of overuse and injuries from overtraining, basically. At that point, I was missing the whole point of martial arts and training and the real benefit and wisdom, as Victoria was saying, that you would get from training, regardless of what it is, whether it's martial arts or dance or anything. It really can be anything. I mentioned Zumba in kind of a bad way, but even if it is Zumba, basically if you choose to make it a sacred thing, you could say, anything can be. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it is blowing up a balloon. I don't know why I chose that, but it's just anything, and it really is a matter of perspective, your intention, what's going on within you as you're doing whatever the activity is. And it doesn't even have to be fitness related. Like I said before, it can be anything, whether it is government or growing your food or eating your food, for that matter.
I mean, for me, when I can go out in the backyard or the front yard and take some weeds or, the plants that are outside that grow naturally, and take a moment to connect with them, just by the fact of looking at them, choosing the one that I want to take in, and, I just took it from the earth, and it creates a different relationship than going to the supermarket and taking a package.
Right.
It's a totally different relationship. So I think that all of these, the dance, the martial arts, doing them in a way that is Matrix-like, or watching sports on television, all of that is really taking our soul away from us. I just right now search online for CrossFit to see what I see, and what I see is almost like drones.
Right.
I don't see a soul expressing their true power, but I see like a drone. They are very beautiful in the body, very strong, but what is the soul of it? So that is what I feel is the Matrix. It's taking away that sovereign force that we have inside and that we can truly express. And then we are, of course, easily manipulated.
Right. It's so easy to get off track, but it's also very easy to get back on track. That's the good thing. As long as we have that perspective and that awareness, we can always just reevaluate what we're doing, where we're at, and where we want to go, and get back on track.
I just wanted to say that we have to remember that it's easy to get back on track because it's our free will. So it's just a matter of choosing it. David Wilcock talks about how the devil, the card in the tarot, it shows how Adam and Eve are subjected to the devil with a chain, but the chain is loose, so they can really take it off from their heads, from their necks, and be free. So the system in which we live is the same. We can choose to do CrossFit because it's the trend, and we want that our friends look at us and say, wow, you're so cool, Or we can say, I'm going to go within. Maybe you're going to think I'm totally crazy, but I'm just going to go within. It's my free will right now to go within and find out who I am. And I'm going to start changing the choices I make. So that's our free will. We always have that choice. So it's more about an internal transformation. It is external too, but it is a lot of internal transformation, because in this moment, many people that comes to my classes, they speak to me that it is so hard to find a place where they can show certain aspects of their lives, like talk about law or sovereignty, or talk about spirit guides or things like that. I don't realize, because that's my life. So for me, it's totally normal. And I've been with these experiences for so long. And I can talk in the radio about it. But I realize that many people may not feel that freedom. So it's still their free will to start speaking more about it, finding the circles, so that we become stronger, so that there is no division, but instead we come together strong. And I feel that when we do that and we start radiating that light that is contagious, and more people is going to be interested in this. I feel when we do that and we show the world that it is possible to be free and live a different life, then things will change.
Right. And once you get a taste of it, it's one of those things that it kind of keeps drawing you back in. It reminds me of a quote that Morpheus was saying. I wrote a blog post about this recently.
In EarthSkyPeople.org.
Right. That Morpheus says to at this point, I guess he's becoming Neo. Excuse me. Neo asks Morpheus, "What is the Matrix?" And Morpheus comes up with this analogy that there's something wrong with the world, that people like Neo are aware of the Matrix but they're not fully aware of what it is, but they have this feeling that something's wrong with the world, like a splinter in his mind. And that analogy there is just really powerful for me. Once you know that something's wrong, something needs to change, you keep going back to what is that? Like what is there? What happens if this is a little different? And that question is always there. Once you have that question, it never goes away. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to plant the question by presenting these basically a different perspective to see these normal everyday things that are around you. But what are they really? They're not really just these normal everyday things that are there to help you.
And the thing is that I feel that in the beginning, when somebody starts being interested in these things, there are so many situations in our lives that are going to try to keep us unaware and into the matrix. There are many reminders every day of, oh, you shouldn't look at that. Why would you do that? Just look at this commercial. It's so great. And your friends are going to come and tell you, oh, why don't we go get drunk? Or things like that, So I feel that in the beginning, we really need to be consistent, find circles that offer us support. But then truly, as you said, once you discover it, it's like you are thirst for truth. And that's what happens, that I just absorb all this information, and we both are like looking for new information. It's like, oh my goodness, how amazing this is. It's unreal, but no, it is very real actually. So in the beginning, it may take a little bit of discipline to not watch television or not continue doing all the things, and start bringing more light and awareness into your everyday life. But once you get there, there is no way back for sure.
Right, and the first step again is awareness, knowing what things are for what they really are. And so moving on to medicine. So within health, we have food, we have fitness, and we have medicine. So medicine is another huge one. I worked in the medical industry in traditional Chinese medicine as an acupuncturist, and if there's one thing that I would bring away from that is the experience of really understanding just how powerful it is to feel that somebody has a solution for you to something that you have no idea what it is or how to take care of it. And there's a fear that comes from that's really like no other fear. If you have an illness and you don't know what it is, it has this way of kind of eating at you, and modern medicine creates these situations. I wouldn't say modern medicine. I would say the intent behind these big profit-driven corporations, drug corporations, are there to create this fear in you that there is a problem and only they have the solution for it.
And I noticed that when people come for sessions, they are like, even for classes, like, okay, you're gonna help me, and it's like, no, I don't, I mean, of course I'm going to help you as much as possible, but really, the thing I'm going to do is to reconnect you with your own power, because it's not about me making magic for you. It is truly about the person reconnecting with their own healing and their own empowerment, and knowing that they have all the solutions inside, because they are as connected as I am to the web of light. Yeah. So they can really get all of that firsthand, right, directly. They don't need me as an intermediary, although it helps, because when we join with one other person with a focused intent, that is very powerful, of course, and I'm here for them to help them doing that. But it's all about self-empowerment and knowing that we have anything that we need, that our bodies have the natural ability to heal themselves.
Right. The thing about medicine, though, I found that unlike some of these other things, like fitness, for example, and food, medicine, at least in my experience, it's one of those things that it's really hard to break free from that grip that the Matrix has. Just because there is that intense, very primal fear,
right, of survival,
right,
root chakra,
right, and that fear exists also with food, but for some reason, there's just something about medicine that is just so much more powerful, and that's one of the reasons why I got out of medicine. I closed down my private practice, because I couldn't handle being a part of that, and I at least at the time, I didn't have the tools that I felt that I could help people in that way. People were coming to me to fix their problems using this magical solution, and they kept coming to me with the same problems. I couldn't really find a way around that, and that was draining me. I was basically burning out, because I couldn't find a way to be as helpful or as I guess as helpful as I would have liked to be. That's really the reason why I went into medicine in the first place. But I found that I was creating a dependence.
And that is part of the veil that is presented before our eyes, because we should be intuitive enough to understand what is happening within our bodies, but we are not. We are disconnected from that intuition. So then it becomes so scary to have something inside of you that you have no idea, you cannot reach, you cannot touch, you cannot see, and you need help from somebody outside to tell you what is inside you.
Right.
Whereas if you were always connected with your wisdom, able to have your intuition, knowing how to move your energy inside, that will create much more self-empowerment, and you will be your authority. So I feel it's very important to reconnect with your inner wisdom.
Yeah, and these things are easier said than done.
Of course.
The concept is easy. It's very simple. But to actually do that, it will really depend on how deeply entrenched you are within this matrix, within this system. And it's really a system, a set of beliefs that have been imposed upon us. Basically, we've been hypnotized and brainwashed into believing this basically every day. Through everything, even if we don't watch TV, just driving down the freeway, we see billboards, the same billboard over and over again, presented in different ways, telling us something.
Repetition.
Right, it is driving this message home subconsciously. We're not even necessarily looking at it and thinking about it at a conscious level.
Repetition. We don't understand, I think, the power of repetition.
Right.
When something is repeated and repeated and repeated, it becomes so real for us. It was studied how people would react when something is repeated to them. And for example, if somebody is a noble person and suddenly it gets into an environment of people that are delinquents, in the beginning it would be like, oh my goodness, I cannot do this. But if that idea of maybe stealing or doing something negative is repeated and repeated in their environment once and again, at the end it becomes a little normal. and at the end it may be something that they embrace because they don't feel that it's so strange. So repetition and repetition and repetition is something that kind of transforms our system or our view of life. And if we are able to change all the programming that is coming to us into something that is actually conducive to our health and conducive to our happiness, that is one of the most powerful things we can do.
Right, and repetition along with conformity, another thing. Conformity, the idea of everybody does, what everybody else does, the normal thing to do, is also a very powerful thing. It generally is not desirable to be the black sheep or the person who stands out, the sore thumb, as they call it. There's usually all these negative connotations about it, but it's really just being an individual, being yourself, and having the confidence and power to ask questions and to express who you are and your individual, your own sovereignty, basically your ability to govern yourself and choose whether to be influenced or not by what's going on around you.
Right, and express your truth. If it doesn't fit the rest, so what? But just express your truth, because it is very valuable. So something that I encourage you to do too.
Yeah, absolutely. And medicine, there's just so much that we can talk about out of all of these subjects. But I did want to, at the very least, bring the subject up so that you can just be aware of this. And again, I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of detail, but I want you to ask yourself about it, and if you feel called to it, do some research about it. But these are all other aspects of part of our matrix, part of the matrix that we're living in right now. So within medicine, we see vaccinations, a lot of diseases and disorders that we're seeing today are either being misdiagnosed, overdiagnosed, or people just, in the medical industry just puts a name on something so that it can be a disease, a problem that you can prescribe a drug and some kind of treatment to. All of these things, there are cures or there's preventions, but we are told that there either is no cure, we just have to be on this treatment for life just to live a normal life, or that we need to have some kind of vaccination to prevent it or whatever it is, but basically some other way to get hooked onto pharmaceuticals or some other kind of treatment. Autism, diabetes, heart disease, depression, and the list goes on. And these are common problems that we see in modern society. There was a report that came out, an article, I think it was put out by the AMA, the American Medical Association, in 2000. And the report talks about, and I think this statistic has been mentioned a lot in many different areas, but I don't know if you've heard of this, but the statistic that healthcare is the third leading cause of death.
Yes, I did.
In the U.S., yeah. So,
that tells you about how it's going, right?
Right, and the thing is that this is put out by the AMA. We're talking about another system of control here, so we have to ask ourselves, well, why did they put out the report? Why did they make it available? And really what it comes down to, we were talking about government earlier. I didn't mention this, but another big part of government is the illusion of control, the illusion that we, the people, that we have control and power if we play the game of government, if we play within the system. And yeah, we do have power. We can change the government. The only problem is that it's probably not going to happen if we play the government's game. If we try to work the system will always work us. So we have to step outside the system in order to make that change. And so the same thing here when we're talking about this report. When they talk about healthcare being the third leading cause of death, well, what is their solution? Their solution, what they're telling us, is that so many Americans don't have healthcare, so we have to make healthcare available. And now the problem is that healthcare, again, is part of the system. So essentially what they're trying to do is reconnect or connect more and more people, create this dependency on the system. Just to touch on some of the little facts or points, I guess, in the report. Some of these causes of death are unnecessary surgery, medication errors, infections, reaction to drugs, other errors. A large percentage of people don't have access to healthcare, so that's what they're saying is the root issue. But they said themselves that the leading cause of death is healthcare. So why are they saying that healthcare is the solution to solving the healthcare problems that the U.S. has? It doesn't really make any sense. But basically, what it comes down to is this double speak. This idea of accepting two contradictory truths just through all this reverse logic and confusing wording that is being thrown out at us. The root issue here, the solution is not more healthcare. The solution is education. It's knowing that we have so many sources to improve and control, to be able to heal ourselves from so many things that are considered terminal or have no cure. And it's important that we know that that possibility exists.
And that is beautiful people that is working for us to really receive all the care that we need. Like the other day I was contacted to go speak about Reiki and healing to a support group for breast cancer. And this is in the Kaiser Permanent in Baldwin Park in California. Kaiser. And I was excited. It's like, truly, we're going to do something. Yes, And then the lady told me, normally there are like about 5 people. And I'm like, I mean, all the people that may go to that place for health, and only about 5 people are in these talks. I don't know. Cannot we do this at a large scale, really?
Yeah.
What really excites me is that some of my students are nurses and doctors, and I are bringing meditation and Reiki into their practice.
Sure.
That's so exciting.
Another thing, though, that what you mentioned brings to mind is that, and this is directly coming from the movie The Matrix, is that the Matrix, the system, has to allow for a certain level of existence outside of the Matrix. And for us, that means that, hospitals are going to a certain degree going to allow what they call alternative healthcare to exist. And the media, again, is going to allow a certain amount, a small percentage of this amazing information to reach people.
Because otherwise,
the system will basically rebel. The system, the Matrix, will not be accepted. So within the movie, the whole concept of this resistance, the rebellion of people who are being freed from the Matrix, was actually built into the Matrix by the architect, which is the guy that created the Matrix, that designed it. And he did it this way because when he designed the Matrix as a perfect world, humans were rejecting the program. Right? So in this case, in our reality, the Matrix, our reality, our Matrix has to allow, to a certain degree, this alternative stuff to exist. The truth is out there, and it has to be accessible to a certain degree. Otherwise, things just won't work out. So we have to consider that also. We do see some things appearing in convention that were once not conventional. But that's also... I'm pretty sure that it's a calculated degree that they're allowing, and then they take that information and then they either overwhelm it with other things, or they twist it around, or they change it.
And that reminds me, when I went to Spain last year, I was talking with my aunt and uncle about solar power, how cool, blah, blah, blah. And then they said, yes, but they said in television or in the news or somewhere that is really actually really bad, because it is going to use all the resources to be creating all these panels and just forget about it. And I was like, what? I mean, did you hear about that? I never heard that thing. Right. So it seems that in Spain they talk about forget about solar power because of that.
Yeah, that's the Matrix again, kind of reestablishing control after allowing a certain thing to exist, because it needs to exist to be a balance.
And for me, I feel that when we grow up having television as the authority, anything that is in television is true. Everything that is in the radio has to be true. I mean, why would they tell us something that is not true? It's the authority of the information.
It was on Oprah.
It was on Oprah too?
No, I'm just saying, if it's on Oprah, it's got to be true, right?
Right. So it's like, I remember the time when I had my awakening, I was so lost for answers. So I was reading all these books, and because it was in a book, I thought it has to be true. But then when I started comparing books, they were opposite information, and I was like, well, what is this? What am I going to do now? If the authority that I have outside of me is telling me different things, what do you do then? So that's when I said, I can only find the truth inside. That's what I found. And since then, that's what prevails in my life always.
Yeah. And that's big, what you just mentioned right there. That's huge, because that is probably the single most powerful tool that is being used by our matrix, by the matrix, to keep us confused. Okay, we have tons of information, and let's just say, I'm going to choose a few big ones here. Veganism versus, say, the paleo community. So these are two cult-like groups. Okay, the following really is cult-like. They both have their absolute dogmatic belief systems, and the problem is that they're both right, because you can look into the research, into the medical research, the scientific. You can look at all of these studies and find a tremendous amount of information on both sides that will tell you that this is true and that is wrong, but then the other side will tell you the exact opposite and have data to back it up.
And to me, that is because everything is possible, everything is real, and it's just how we are set in our beliefs that we allow it to be real. That is my metaphysical perspective.
Well, I think to a certain degree that's true, but the at least in my perspective, I tend not to look at things so much from the metaphysical side. I do believe that plays an important role, but looking into it, the thing is that what they're doing typically is taking a little bit of information from a big book, from a story, and taking it completely out of context, and then using it. They're cherry picking, basically, is what's happening.
Wow.
A little bit of information from a huge study, and then, or that study is a small part of a bigger reality, a bigger mass of information. And unless you look at it within the context from which it was taken, it doesn't make sense. It can't be used that way. And we see this kind of manipulation being used routinely. This is basically standard. I took an EMT because I was certified as an EMT, an emergency medical technician at UCLA, and it just blew my mind how many techniques they're using as EMTs that have no scientific basis that it actually works.
Wow.
They would teach us because they think it works, but they don't really know.
Wow.
Of course, we're talking about a niche part of medicine whereby you're basically just trying to increase survival so that you can take somebody to the hospital. My point is that even in modern medicine, and modern medicine is so important. I think technology and scientific advancement is super huge. But we have to know its place and keep it in perspective and understand that it's neutral, really, and we have to use the information to advance our understanding as opposed to manipulate things to trick people into thinking a certain way. So that's kind of the crux of it. But moving on to the next one, again, we can go into so much detail into all of these things. There's just so many little branches and roots, and
that's why we're going to be offering this deprogramming training series so that we can really go in depth.
Right.
We feel that there is so much material to cover that's why we're revamping all of this and just making sure that we can create a format that can allow us to share with you.
Exactly, and the purpose of this show, this radio show right now, this particular episode of What is the Matrix? We're simply presenting some information to you that will hopefully make you ask questions. Wonder why things are the way they are, and what are the possibilities. We need to look beyond this veil, which is the Matrix. So, business and economics. So business and economics, another big one, another big construct of the Matrix, a tool that is being used to control us. So probably one of the bigger ones is going to be scarcity. So the idea of scarcity, it's something that we have a limited something, and you're going to have to do certain things to get that something, and only the privileged few will be able to do that. So coming from that, we have commercialism. So commercialism is probably the single most destructive aspect of our economic and business model. And the reason why, so this is an interesting paradigm that, it's really obvious, but I think that, at least for me, it really wasn't so obvious until it was made obvious. So in commercialism, the idea is to create profit. So in commercialism, we have the primary tool of advertising, and advertising is probably the thing. It is the one thing that drives everything and kind of turns something that would otherwise be good. It turns it right up on its head, and now it turns into something, a system of control. So, logically, if you need something, you basically produce something. You produce what you need, right? So, if we're hungry, we want food. We either get food or we grow our food, right? Or if we want to write something, we're going to get something to write on and something to write with, right? But the problem is that in advertising, we're not allowed to have our own needs and have those needs drive the engine of commerce. Instead, what we have is these people producing things that are then creating advertisements that are telling us what we need. So that is exactly the Matrix. The Matrix is telling us what we need rather than allowing us to determine for ourselves what we want, what we need to grow.
There are so many invented needs at this point that I'm sure that I'm using many things myself that are just invented needs. And we are just used to, I need this, I need that, but it is totally invented. It's not necessarily at all, and people is going to just feel that they truly need, and they cannot find it for themselves because it's not things that nature is going to provide, but instead are things that are going to really make us dependent of a place where we have to go shopping.
Right.
And one of the things that to me was very amazing was, this is kind of personal, but anyway, every month I was buying tampons for my period. Every single month, and just thinking, oh my goodness, all this trash that is created because of this. Every single month. So every single woman doing this, throwing all this trash and buying this every single month, it was really a nightmare to always be dependent on that. Until finally, the menstrual cup, just buy it once, and then you clean it, and then you use it, and then you clean it, and then you use it. No more tampons. Yes! I mean, things like that. I'm sure there are many things that we are buying every month or every day or using.
Oh, sure. Another big one, just totally related to that, is diapers. Baby diapers.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
Baby diapers, there's so many brands and so many versions with this little technology there and that design here and whatever it is and the brand and the softness and the whatever. But it's mind-boggling just how many tons of trash that is never going to disappear. You can probably find decades-old diapers that are still completely intact in landfills.
Oh my goodness!
It really is ridiculous. And we're talking about something that has a solution that requires no cost whatsoever, and also provides a solution to help renew the planet. But instead, the Matrix takes this natural thing and now creates a need that forces us to be dependent on this thing that is not only creating this dependence, but also destructive. It's producing this waste that is never going to, or not never, but it'll probably be there long after we're gone.
Right.
So as far as business and economics, again, it promotes this commercialism, and actually it's not even capitalism, it's corporatism. We have a small number of people controlling things, producing this incredible economic disparity. And I don't know where we saw this. I know you shared it. I think somebody shared it with you on Facebook or some video where it showed this graphical representation of the economic disparity between the middle class and then the top 1%, which it really is amazing.
So this is what happened. There was a video in which a lady was talking.
A piece of debate or something in the news.
So she was sharing how the 1% had all the wealth in the world. And she was really hurt by this situation. And the man in front of her was like, yes, I think it's great. We have a system that allows the ones that work hard to have the money.
Right.
And the lady was all upset, of course. And the funny thing is that somebody was commenting and several people agree on that.
It was actually most of the people that commented on the video agreed with. It's not even agreement. It's actually
hope.
Yeah, that system actually provides a certain level of hope and inspiration.
Yeah. Because
you can be the 1%.
Just work hard.
You just work hard, right?
Yeah, because I remember I just posted a comment like, "Oh my goodness, this is terrible," right? And everybody against me like, "What are you talking about? This is great. This is very inspirational. You can work hard and get to the top and blah blah blah." And I'm like, "No, you cannot. Sorry, you can get a little bit and you can grow." But the ones at the top are going to be the same all the time. Right. And finally, I share some links to see if they realize about the situation. But, some people is truly asleep. And that goes back to that phrase, if you are not with us, you are one of them. You are really fighting to support that system that is oppressing you.
And part of the problem that I believe is happening of why people are willing to accept that situation with such a severe economic disparity is that, like I was mentioning before, that the system is going to allow for a certain level of change and revolution, I guess you could say, to be allowed within the system. And when we look at economics, there you do hear of these rags to riches stories, but the problem again is perspective. When we zoom out and we look at really what is happening in these rags to riches stories, a big one, Anthony Robbins. Anthony Robbins I don't know if you've heard of his story, but he was living in off of top ramen and tomato paste, or who was that? Maybe it was
that was me too.
Was it you? A lot of people. The guy who invented Soylent, he was doing the same thing. Chris Howard, I think.
So it's more normal. I didn't know that.
That's
my
the
goodness.
thing. Even Chris Howard, right. And then these guys experience incredible success and they get rich. They have a lot of money, But if you look at it, they're still not the 1%. You know,
Exactly.
they're actually still pretty close to middle class if you look at the
Exactly.
if you look at the numbers. So, and that's why that graphical representation was so powerful, because even people that are rich, you know, and I'm using the quotes sign, are actually not. If you really look at the top 1%, I think it's hard for people to really comprehend and conceptualize, to just wrap their minds around what that 1% really is.
But this, once again, a matter of repetition. Yeah. This was the first time that maybe they saw someone saying that that's not right, and then I went and I said it's not right, and then they rebel, but when they are told 20 times this is not right, they will start thinking, you know, maybe it is not right.
Right.
And they will realize that this contained box, and it's like, where do you want to be in this box? Do you want to be to the right, to the left, to the top, to the bottom? But you're never going to go out of this box.
Right, yeah.
You know? Because you're never going to be that 1%. You're going to be here, and you can be a little more successful, or you can be terribly poor, but you're going to be here. So the idea is to go outside of there.
Yeah.
And once again, money is another illusion, of course. So.
Money is huge, yeah. It's all part of the economics, and it's another one of those tools that is being used to perpetuate this system of control. Again, we can talk about this stuff for hours. There's just so much information. But the key here is awareness, to understand that there is that system, and to have the desire to learn about it, to know how it works, so that you can step out of that system and know how you can make a change for yourself and for the rest of the world. The next one, a big one, and we actually touched on this already, is the media. So the media is the right hand of that control system, because this is how we learn about what's happening outside of our immediate environment. Yeah, I know what's going on right here in the living room because I can see it, but how do I know what's happening in, you know, a few miles away, or in the next state, or in the next country, or whatever it is? We learn about this through the media. Fortunately, we now have the internet, and even the internet has its own control systems. There are people that are trying to control that. But before, all we had was the news, NBC or ABC or, you know, CNN, whatever all the big news is. And when you look a little deeper as to who is funding these stations, you find out that ultimately it really is these huge corporations. It's government. It's what they call the military industrial complex, or the pharmaceutical industrial complex, or whatever it is. These huge mega corporations that are basically determining what information you get to hear, so that they're essentially creating your world. Because if not for what the information that they're giving you, you wouldn't know. Of course, now it's different, because now we can access things. We have people out in the middle of nowhere in, say, Africa, out in the middle of a desert, and somehow they have this little post with a satellite dish, and they're able to upload pictures or video or whatever from a cell phone.
Yeah, we saw one of my mentors and her assistant. They are my shamanic family, and they have one of their mentors in Africa, so that's why we saw one of them with a computer, and she's sharing information with the whole world,
right?
And she's in Africa.
And this is stuff that would not have happened, and this is recent. I mean, it's just amazing to compare what's happening now versus, I went to the university in 1997, and my pre-university years in high school, we had dial-up internet. And dial-up internet was awesome, because now I could access this amazing stuff that I never had access to. And then so I went to college, and they had Ethernet. So at UCLA, they were developing the Ethernet system. I think it was fairly new at the time. So we're talking 1997. That's not that long ago. That's almost 20 years ago. Right? In 20 years, when we're talking about the vastness of time, is nothing. It's literally a blink of an eye.
It has accelerated so much in the last few years, and this is what was represented in the Mayan calendar. I don't know if you saw this image that is like a pyramid of how the time is condensing.
Sure.
And the last step in that pyramid was like the time is really compressed. So we are living in a very accelerated time where we are really evolving very, very fast. Everything is happening so fast. I remember when I grew up in Spain, the kind of life that I was living there to what I'm living now is like a different planet.
Yeah, we have access to so much stuff. It really is mind-boggling, the things that you can learn. They're just so easily accessible, free, and abundant just through the internet. And the internet, even, you don't even have to have service. Just go to the library or whatever. There's so many hotspots. So yeah, that's the media. Again, anytime the media says anything, and we're talking about mainstream media, we always have to take a moment and think about what it is they're saying and why are they saying it and who's behind what they're saying it. What is the goal?
And research.
You
can research online about the same subject and see what is being said.
Right.
Some people was telling me about things that are happening in Spain that are only known in internet, but nobody knows unless they search on internet.
Right, yeah. So another one of these big control systems, and this tends to be a sensitive issue, is organized religion.
Oh my goodness.
So I think it's probably best that we not go too far into this. Right. But really, organized religion.
And you're a lucky fella, because you didn't have much of that, did you?
Well, I was fortunate in the sense that many people on my dad's side of the family are fairly religious. They're, I believe, Catholic. And my dad was brought up in a Jesuit boarding school, so very strict religious upbringing, as is my mom. And I think that's exactly why they're not religious. My mom was brought up in Mexican Catholicism, and Catholicism already, I don't want to upset anyone, but Mexican Catholicism is even worse because the extra, the little rituals and the superstition is in there. It gets pretty out of this world.
And I want to say, there are priests that are wonderful, wonderful people, and nuns that are wonderful people. I grew up as a Catholic as well. Not as well. You didn't. You're lucky. You're the lucky fella, okay? I'm not the lucky fella in that sense. But anyway, I grew up going to a Catholic school until I was in 8th grade. So I have a lot of that programming that I continue deprogramming. So there was very, very beautiful souls there. Very beautiful nuns and priests. There were other ones that were not so beautiful. Once again, it's not about the people themselves. Obviously, if somebody is going to dedicate their lives to this, most likely they want to be of service to the world in some way, and just maybe chose not the best way. But they are still doing a good service if they are of a good heart and they understand the differences between what is the system and what is their heart, sharing love with others. I'm very happy with many of the people that was there, and then there were others that I'm not happy at all. And I remember going to a church once when I had my awakening because I was so lost, and the way in which the priest was speaking and looking at me, like making me feel guilty and ashamed, and he didn't even know me. And it was like, wow, that feels so bad. I left the place and I noticed that pressure from that priest. But then you would go to other places and you can see the love flowing from the voice of the priest. So once again, I don't want to criticize the people in that system, but I do feel that that system creates a lot of fear, a lot of shame, and a lot of guilt. And that's what keeps people very trapped instead to feel free.
Right. And I think that's super important to talk about also in the other subjects that we mentioned. The people are not the problem unless they're perpetuating the system. But even so, even within the system, people may still may be doing whatever it is that they're doing because they believe it to be the best that they can do to be of service. And I have a story also in medicine. So in medicine, we're talking about a system of control. We already talked about it, so I won't repeat it again. But basically, growing up, I had a lot of health issues. When I got to college, they got even worse. I had a ton of health issues. I went and had surgery every year for sinus and nasal polyps because I had a severe allergic reaction, basically an immune response to something, who knows what. But I was told that I would have to go and have surgery every year. And the doctor, I think he meant well. I mean, I think he had my best interest in mind. But he's just doing what he was trained, what he was told was what needed to be done. When I had one of my surgeries, I was coming out of anesthesia, and I don't know if anyone's had any kind of sinus surgery. It's pretty bad because they have to pack in this gauze, basically this pressure bandage inside of the nasal and sinus cavity to prevent bleeding. And in so doing, you're basically creating a lot of internal pressure, which gives you this intense migraine. Yeah. So, and then I was coming out of anesthesia, so I still had drugs in my system. I was feeling really bad. I was having this reaction to the anesthesia. I was feeling nauseous. Had this incredible headache. I was totally out of it. I wasn't very aware of my surroundings. I just felt like I just been put through a meat grinder, basically. Yeah. But one of the nurses there, I don't even know who she was. I don't remember what she looked like. All I remember was just her voice. It was really soothing. It was like, it was basically like the light at the end of the tunnel. I felt so bad coming out of this unconsciousness from the anesthesia, but I was somehow able to find some level of comfort just because this nurse was really taking her job, to that heart space, that heart level where she just was wanting to help people.
And that's what the other day we had a group here for healing, and one of the nurses was saying how nursing has changed from something that you're really devoted to help people to instead just making money. So you had the good luck to
Right.
have that nurse there. That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's a memory that really stuck with me just because it's not very often, I think, that I really felt somebody just had this genuine desire to help without any expectation of return, because obviously I wasn't going to return anything. I was probably never going to see her again. I didn't know who she was. I was totally out of it. I couldn't even acknowledge her existence, just because I was so out of it, basically. All I could do was receive.
That's the human aspect, the soul, all the opposite of the CrossFit that we were talking before.
Right.
That's what we truly are, that compassion, that heart-centeredness, which is all in the heart chakra, which we are coming back to now. The heart chakra is the bridge between the lower chakras and the upper chakras. So right now we are disconnected from that chakra, so our energy cannot flow through all of our energetic system, so it's stuck in the 3 lower chakras. And when I talked about the chairs with guilt, with shame, and with fear, those are the negative aspects of the 3 lower chakras. So we are stuck there, and that's what happens in medicine, as you shared. It's all about fear, right? So that's, once again, root chakra. Or any of the other things. It's like all about keeping our energy in those 3 chakras and being very competitive in our society so we can make money and be successful, and all of that is lower chakras. Whereas now we are opening as a collective to that compassion, and this nurse obviously was connected with that, and some people is connected with that, but the system is not conducive in general to be in that heart-centered space.
Yeah, so having that awareness will allow us to do that more by understanding what's happening, and through that understanding, having that desire to make something different, to have something different, and to be something different.
Yeah, to be who we truly are. Eckhart Tolle says in A New Earth, what a beautiful title for a book, he says that we don't need to become good, we just need to allow the goodness that is already within us.
Right.
So that's, once again, taking that veil off and allow our soul to shine through us.
And what you just said there reminds me of something, getting back to the subject of organized religion. I was having a conversation with somebody recently, and this may not be true for all organized religions, but, Christianity is a major one. And I think
Christianity or Catholicism?
Christianity. The Catholicism, sure, but I'm talking specifically Christianity in general as a whole. But yeah, Catholicism specifically is what actually we were talking about. But basically, this concept that you said that we are good, I believe that.
Yeah.
We're not all good right now necessarily. Some people may not have the best intentions, and I understand that too. But I have to believe that inherently we're all good.
We are.
And now we look at Christianity. No, I'm not an expert at Christianity, so I'm sorry if I'm butchering the philosophy here. But there is that the first sin or whatever. Basically, we're born
everything
sin.
is a sin.
Yeah. Well, it's not that everything's a sin. We're born sinners, right?
No,
we're inherently born bad. Right?
I know.
Right?
You have no idea all the guilt that I carried most of my life and how long it took to get rid of most of that.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah.
So that was the one thing that we're having this conversation, and I can certainly relate to various aspects of most religions. I think that at the core we can really, not necessarily at the core, but we can dig deep in pretty much anything and find some kernel of truth and something that is a benefit to us. But when you look at the foundational belief system or dogmatic belief, and if you may not know what dogma is basically this immutable truth that the powers that be, whatever it is, whoever they are, say that this is the way it is, and you have to accept it because it is. That's the main problem. So when we're looking at a system that tells you without any hope of change or any hope of seeing it in a different way, translating it or whatever it is, but that you are born sinful, that you are born
inadequate, not enough.
Right. The Matrix has you.
Right. And you're going to start acting in a different way, trying to change who you are to fit in the system, to absolve yourself from your sins. And then your life is already in a totally different direction. Instead to trust that you are beautiful, that you are divine, that you are pure light, that you have a special gift, that's who you have to be. So imagine if since you are born, you have this beautiful energy around you. And that reminds me of this video that, it's not a video, it's a blog post that is on Facebook, and says about how in a place in Africa, when somebody does something bad, like stealing or something, people goes around him and sing the song that they were sang when they were born to remind that person who they are. Did you hear that story?
Sounds familiar, but I'm not
sure.
sure.
Chris Moraski shared it in our first meeting for EarthSky people. That reminds me what you were sharing about the certain amount of goodness in the system so that we don't escape from it. I feel that a lot of the videos that are on Facebook are sucking our time. I mean, how many hours can you stay looking at very beautiful videos, very beautiful posts, very interesting and funny videos and posts on Facebook? How many hours? I think that it is a little bit out of balance.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. And there's a lot of really awesome things, very inspirational, very good, very beautiful things to look at and to learn from. As I mentioned before, it's so easy to get off track and to kind of lose perspective. One thing that I noticed is these seminars. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of being a seminar junkie.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
There are these inspirational seminars, and I don't want to name names, but there's a lot of big names out there that have these seminars that are designed to create this kind of euphoric, evangelical experience. And people are crying and having this amazing transformational experience. But what happens is that there's no foundation. When they leave, basically that feeling, that transformational feeling that they got dissipates very fast. And ultimately, they have to go back.
But while you are there, they sell you this and they sell you that and you want to buy everything.
Yeah, and, I don't really know what the motive is. Frankly, I wish I can believe that the people that are masterminding this are really wanting to help people. And maybe they are, I don't know. But my point is in understanding that is another control system. They may or may not be wanting to take advantage of people. It seems to me like they are. I'm sad to believe that such inspirational people would be doing that. But that's the way the Matrix works in other aspects as well, creating a sense of hope and excitement and this euphoria. But you have to go back. You have to be hooked into it in order to continue receiving that. Otherwise, you get into this all-time low and desperation and this darkness.
And that's what I was sharing in the last show, the 3rd International Chanting for Peace and Laughter. And it's something I learned from Sandra Ingerman. Because it happens also in some spiritual retreats or spiritual classes and things like that you feel in such a blissful state, and then you go back to your normal world and it's like not like that at all.
Right.
And another aspect of life appears. And in part is that we are very used to judge this as good, this as bad, and it's part of the system as well. This is good, this is bad. I want this, I don't want that. And that is a lot of the forces that are guiding us every day to make choices. Every single time we make a choice, we try to escape the bad and go for the good. If we are able to balance those forces and just accept things as this is, that's it. It's not good, it's not bad, it is. But what happens is that when we push away the bad things, we are putting away half of who we are or what life is, the shadow aspect. So if we enhance so much the light for 20 hours that a seminar is going to last, then the shadow is going to say, hello, I'm here. You were totally out of balance. You were totally polarized to the light. So now I'm here, and then the shadow aspect is going to appear as well. And that happens all the time. When we find that balance in the middle path, we reach that place of oneness and neutrality in which we can be unconditional love and look at everything without judging it as good or bad. But if we bring this amazing burst of excitement and we are all over the top, and then we're going to go down. It's like the people that have imbalances like mood swings or being bipolar, all of these. I'm a person that I'm very excited always, So now I learned that even if I'm very excited, I'm going to acknowledge the shadow as well and understand that it's not all positive light, but that it's more about integrating all of who I am and honoring all of who I am. And when everything is complete, it's like the Dark Crystal, the movie, the end of the Dark Crystal. It's not all about the light, and reject the dark, but everything together is one, and it's the lack of judgment. It's the 0 point judgment, zero division. We are all one, and then we don't have those swings.
Right. Yeah, it's another amazing movie. It's so old, but having such interesting concepts. The middle path concept is really interesting. I think that's very powerful. Another thing that I wanted to add to that is when we look at these sources of inspiration, like the example that I gave about the seminar junkies, at these seminars, they actually have some pretty powerful tools that you can use to change your thinking process and, mantras and whatever else. They actually have interesting tools. The problem that I see is that they're creating this dependence. So what we want is for people to incorporate this stuff in their everyday life. Everyday life is not going to be like going to this euphoric evangelical seminar. Your everyday life is a series of ups and downs and so many different experiences, and you have to embrace things for what they are, learn the lessons, and just make sure that your core, that your strength is coming from the inside. We have to start to understand that we don't want to be relying on things coming from the outside.
Exactly. And what they share is important, but what you have within is even more important.
Right.
And it's again happening the same. We are expanding this show. We want to make sure we're going to complete this very soon. So we're going to be a little faster now speaking. But you will have the opportunity to join the free series of the deprogramming training. And you can sign up at earthskypeople.org/2. That is the number 2. So once again, earthskypeople.org/2.
And keep in mind, this is a free training series. Okay, it's a video training series, and we're presenting it in a very unique format.
That is a secret.
That is a secret. Yeah. We're really looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a very powerful experience, and it's not for the seminar junkies. It's not going to be this evangelical experience. This is. Yes, there is going to be some very powerful, inspirational stuff, but at the same time, I think really the core is creating foundation, creating the structure that is not easy to dismantle. The system essentially is eroding our foundation and replacing it with their own, which is not a real foundation. It's actually strings. So we don't have a foundation, but although we feel like we might, we're actually just hanging on strings and we're being manipulated by the matrix. So what we're trying to do with our training series is cut those strings and create a real foundation that roots you so that you have the tools, the knowledge, the awareness, your own power to break free from the matrix should you choose to do that. Why you wouldn't choose to do that, I don't know, but you basically have boundless potential once you do that.
Right, and this is a way in which you can deprogram yourself. And once you deprogram yourself, you know who you are and what you want. So it's more about that. It's taking these cords that we have into the system, like truly like Neo, all these cords, Mr. Anderson, plugged into the system. So taking all those cords and bring them back to your heart where your truth is and seeing what is there and what you truly want for your life. Knowing that you are free and seeing that, because there are many degrees of freedom. And I know that at my point where I am now, I grew a lot and I feel that I know a lot more what is possible in life. But I know that I have some hypnosis, I'm not completely free. And every single day I discover a little more. I peel a new layer. It's like in healing we always say, a new layer is like an onion, always, a new layer until you get to the true light. And once you get to the true light, you are free, you are divine, you are everything that you always wanted to be. So we are not at that point yet. It's like there is so much to discover. And this deprogramming is going to help you to start revealing the truth of who you are.
And what's especially powerful, considering the EarthSky People project, and this being one of those projects, is that, we don't have all the answers, and we're still deprogramming ourselves, but at least what we're doing is creating a community. We're creating a support system whereby we always have those check systems and outside observation where people can tell us if we're missing something, if we're getting off track, can give us new information, give us that support that we need, as opposed to, going to that inspirational seminar or whatever it is, and then leaving, and then you just don't have that support system anymore. You just back into a free fall.
Right. It's impossible for us to do everything. For anyone. It's impossible for anyone to do everything. That's why we need each of us to be connected, to be bringing what we know into our collective. And that's why in EarthSky People, we always want to interact with others and learn from others. And I feel it's the only way in which we can truly see more of reality, the true reality.
Right, and EarthSky People is not our thing, it's not our community, it's your community as well if you choose to, and we welcome you. We would like for you to join us. If you'd like to take part in the training series, again, join us at earthskypeople.org/2, and you can always also connect with us on Facebook and our website. Lots of different ways that you can get involved and start to establish that support system. So getting back to our definition of what is the matrix, I'm just going to go through the list pretty quickly. So energy is a big one. We're dependent on fossil fuels. Fossil fuels, it's kind of it really is kind of an embarrassment. I think that I got this from somebody else. I don't remember who said it, but it just rung so true to me. That if extraterrestrials, from an advanced civilization came and visited Earth and saw that we were still dependent on digging up the remains of our ancestral life on Earth here and burning it up for fuel, I think that would be pretty embarrassing, really, when we have such abundant alternative sources of renewable energy, clean, that is going to help to regenerate the Earth. What is that?
We just don't think.
Right.
It's like the system thinks for us and we accept it.
It's really not that way. We can break free, and there's so many alternatives that already exist. They may not be so easily accessible, but understanding that they exist and supporting the development of that technology is going to be a very powerful step that we can take.
It comes back to the commercialism that sells us things that we don't need, but doesn't provide the things that we truly need. How cool would it be to have a vehicle that runs on solar power? Why is not provided? We need that, okay?
And solar power, is just one among so many forms of energy. I don't know much about that. I don't study that. I'm not a scientist. But supposedly there's infinite energy. It's just a matter of knowing how to tap into it. But certainly burning oil...
It's not the way.
It's not the way. It's barbaric, really. I don't understand how we can be doing that. So another one, agriculture. We talked about this indirectly with food. Agriculture is a huge deal. We're destroying the natural systems and replacing it with an artificial system that is finite, and it's oil-based. We just talked about energy. I think that most people don't realize that the industrial agricultural system is based on fossil fuels. It's kind of weird. You think about, how is that possible? How can they be using fossil fuels in agriculture? Well, in order to produce these mass synthetic fertilizers, they need a carbon source, and that's where it's coming from. If you want to learn more about that, just look into the fertilizers and pesticides that are fossil fuel based. You need fossil fuels to produce them. So once fossil fuels are gone, then what? Now we have this depleted soil, we have reduced biodiversity. We're going to be in a world of hurt here, literally, if we don't make a change.
It's the time of change. Seriously, since we started the year, I felt it, and this is the year. We really need people to join this awareness and start transforming things. And I feel that in 2012, a doorway opened, and this year is the year in which we can truly make it happen. So any way that you would enjoy, whether it is creating your own community, joining our community, getting informed, teaching others, anything that you can do so that we transform our world, it's nothing like a savior is going to come and do this for us. It's truly about each of us taking responsibility and making the transformation. So we really need each of us to join together in this movement so that we are more powerful than the system.
Right. Even if it's just a small step, as long as we're taking these small conscious steps and building up, taking more and more steps, eventually a change will be forced. There will literally be no other choice than for the system to change in some fashion for the better. Mm-hmm. So the next matrix control system, public education.
Oh my goodness.
Public education, wow.
It goes all connected. My experience was that because of being Catholic, I was such a good, complying girl. I mean, I have my rebellious aspect, and I would challenge my teachers many times and say, no, this is not true. But at the same time, I really enjoyed the good grades and all of that, I feel that everything goes together a little bit.
Yeah. It's one of the worst parts of the Matrix, in the sense that not only is it a system of control, it's also where the brainwashing
starts.
That's where it begins, and that's where it's most intense. We're legally required by law to get a certain education, and there's homeschooling, and homeschooling is great. The only problem is that it's tough to homeschool because of all the laws. There's so many horror stories of homeschoolers that have their kids taken away because for one reason or another they're reported, just some crazy bureaucratic stuff.
Wow.
But anyway, we need to look into education. We need to understand that it's kind of cliche, but the kids are our future, the future generation, and we need to set them up so that they can go beyond where we're at. That's basically what it comes down to. We reach a certain limit because of our finite lifespan and our ability to expand on a mental and emotional, spiritual level, and the next generation is always able to surpass that. You look at the Olympics from years ago, and we've come a long way. Every year, there's more and more amazing things. Like, why is that? It's because every generation we're expanding. There's refinement and evolution basically going on here. It's pretty amazing. We really have to look into how the education system is really just turning out more drones for the system, more batteries basically to be harvested. And then within the education system, history. History is a big one too. History is a way that
History is a secret.
It's a secret. It's a secret, and it's one of the biggest things, pieces of information that's being manipulated so that we see the world in a certain way.
Right. And
we need to be aware that what is being taught as generally accepted history is not. And probably one of the biggest indicators is you look at history the way it's taught in a different country. They see history totally different. Say, if we look at history in Spain, their history is going to be totally different from the Spanish history that we're taught here in the U.S.
My goodness.
And you just look at the difference there, you know that there's so much more that is being missed, right? Just because they're both control systems and they both have their own agendas. So because of that, they're going to teach us a specific thing. Anyway, it really is just about asking the questions, finding out where things come from. Moving on, another big one that I think we'll make this the last one, but science and technology. So science and technology by themselves are positive things, in my opinion. I think they're positive, they're necessary. I think that if we really want to grow in our ability to understand, and also in order to live a sustainable, regenerative lifestyle, we have to take advantage of the technology that we have, because the world is changing because of us. If we look back 100,000 years ago, or even 10,000 years or whatever, there was a fraction of the number of human beings on the earth, whereas now we're everywhere. There is no other mammal on the planet that can live in as diverse of environment as human beings. We can survive anywhere. So technology is important, but at the same time, the Matrix is using it as a super, super powerful system of control.
Technologies that we use are not nearly as powerful as the ones that we don't even know that I'm sure are being used by some people, very privileged people, but not by us. So the thing is that many of the technologies that we use are not helping our health. Wireless, for example, I understand that is not good for our energetic field. So I'm sure there are possibilities that could be used that would create these computers or this wireless internet into a way that enhances our health. Or microwaves, any of these, I'm sure there are ways to create this in a way that is conducive to our health. But it is not. Right now, it is a double-sided sword.
Double-edged sword, right, yeah.
Because, once again, Facebook, very awesome. I love Facebook to connect with people, but once again, it is another way of manipulation, especially if you have the Messenger application in your phone. You actually authorize that your camera in your phone and your microphone in your phone can be activated and record you anytime. Something like that, right?
Yeah, we're signing away all of our privacy, essentially, by accepting the application.
Yeah.
And, with technology, there's so much possibility, but it's being used to create dependence and to basically, like what Victoria was describing on Facebook, to force us to sign over our... And they're not really forcing us, it's really a choice. The problem is that it becomes a choice that becomes so difficult to make because of the system that's being put in place.
And that is where the free will is. The devil has people in the chains. And the devil, obviously, I'm talking about the tarot card. But it is you when you say accept the terms of use. When you accept, you are agreeing. So it's your free will that gets you there. And many people, I understand, we are so busy, and the terms of use sometimes are like lines and lines and lines of boring words. We don't want to read it. And we just click the button because we want to talk with our friend that has sent us a message. We have to answer the message. Oh, maybe he said that he likes me or something, And we click. Oh, no. Now we totally sold our privacy.
Right. So, we have to respect technology for what it is. It's something that we can use to make amazing discoveries and increase our ability to live a fulfilling life and increase our freedom and just our ability to experience different things. But if it's being used to limit all that, then it's going against the whole concept of developing technology and science. That's another thing. Science is really, it's a tool to understand things in a different level. But for some reason, people like to use science as a way to control by disproving that or proving this. It's not about proving or disproving. It's about understanding. Science is a method of investigation so that we have a greater understanding so that we can move to the next step and the next level. It's not about proving or disproving people's opinions and thoughts. Yeah, that may happen inadvertently, but ultimately we need to know it for what it is. And it's an investigative tool. It's not going to give us a definitive answer. It just gives us another clue and more questions.
And something I feel also, it just came to me now, so I would like to share it, is that all of this system is very patriarchal. So it's a lot about the masculine energy, not the divine masculine energy, which is wonderful. It's an energy of support. But about the patriarchal, kind of destructive almost energy. And the divine feminine is being suppressed. The divine feminine that is Mother Earth itself, bringing nourishment, giving us all that we need to survive and to be alive and thrive. And I feel that is reflected very much in fashion, for example, how we women are trained to look in a certain way, to wear heels so that we are walking, that we cannot even walk and totally ungrounded, to wear the hair in a certain way. I know that for many, many years, and you know this, I was wearing extensions, making my hair be straight, which obviously is not straight. If you have seen me, I have a lot of curls. And all of that to try to be this woman that I'm not, and to fit what the system says I should be. So I feel that embracing our feminine aspect, both men and women, so that we get to that middle path once again. It is not about a man not being a man, but really embracing the balance between both aspects of himself, the divine feminine, the divine masculine, and bringing a little more of that nourishing energy into our societies or the new communities. Sounds better than society. Society always reminds me a little bit of the Matrix.
Yeah, these are things that I think that we have an inherent connection to. It's just a matter of it's been distorted and there's a lot of interference, and we've kind of been brainwashed away from it because of the Matrix. So we can draw from ancestral knowledge to regain this connection, and then of course we have to also put it into perspective of how it needs to change for our modern usage or modern society as well. So I think we better wrap up. Hopefully this would spark a few questions for you to look into how the Matrix is involved in your everyday life and what you can do about it, how you can find out more about it, get more answers. Just ask questions. Asking questions is really going to be the first step. And you got to ask questions of the most obvious things that you may otherwise think as being normal and no questions needed. Those are the things that need the most looking into, the most investigation.
Okay, so as you know, we will have the deprogramming training series, and you can go to earthskypeople.org/2, and that will be starting in March 22nd.
Right.
So we have pushed it back a month. We wanted to start right away and do everything, but we really want to do something that helps you, inspires you, and that you can really follow easily, and that you enjoy while you watch it as well.
And again, this is a free resource, so you don't lose anything by checking it out. We hope you join us. Check us out also at our website at earthskypeople.org and also on Facebook.
Okay, and next week on February 28th, I will have a guest that also will bring amazing information. His name is Santos Bonacci, and he is sharing universal truth. So you can check that information at victoriavives.com/radio. Okay, and now, as you know, this is a network. It's the Enlightenment Evolution Network. So I'm going to just share with you the different shows that we have. On Mondays at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, we have Heart to Heart Talk Radio with Daniel Scranton. On Tuesday at 12 noon Pacific Time, we have Soulful Preneur with Rachel Archelaus and Megan Crandall-Meyer. On Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, we have the Enlightenment Evolution Hour with Rob Gauthier, the creator of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. On Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, we have Consciousness Evolution Hour with Philip Malika. On Fridays at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, The Earth Experience with Kalina Angel. On Saturdays, like today, at 10 a.m. Pacific Time, is EarthSky People Radio with yours truly, Victoria Vives Khuong. On Saturday at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, Disclosure Now. On Sundays at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, About Oneness with Karen Newman. And finally, Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time, we will have very soon the Resonance Intention with Soul and Neil Gaur. Okay, this was wonderful to connect with you, and just as a short intention that I would like to share, just go within for a moment, focusing in your heart, allowing that light to become stronger than any external influence. And from that place within, connect with me and everybody listening right now. Let's make this bond that makes us strong. No more division, we can start feeling each other and really connecting to transform the world. 2015 is our year to make this happen. Okay, have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you in a week on Saturday. Bye!